All right, then let's call the library board meeting to order. We can attend the meeting here in person on the second floor meeting room in the library. And there will be a recording available after the meeting on the city's website. Are there anybody here to comment during the public comment session?
There does not appear to be.
All right, in that case, we'll call the meeting to order and take the roll. Ryan?
Present.
Nick?
Here.
Emily?
Here.
Mary Beth?
Here.
Ad?
Here.
Laura?
Here.
Steve? All here. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. The Library Foundation.
Hi, I'm Brenda Craddock. I'm the executive director of the Library Foundation, and here's an update. I really feel bad if you wrote down 32auctions.com/library26 on your notebooks, so that you could look at the items that will have up to for bid. And even looking at the items helps us because it gives us more page views. But if you win something, that's cool too. So I have a list of items that I would like to point out. Thank you, Laura, for the back. Thank your baskets. I appreciate those. And we're still looking for more items. So if you have anybody that has an experience or an item that they'd like to donate, please have them reach out to me. 310 is the Day of Giving in Minnesota. It's November 19th. $5 gift could trigger a $500 or $1,000 golden ticket unlimited. So if you mark your calendars or want an email, I'll probably just shoot you an email. If you don't want to do anything, you don't have to, but that's helpful too. We filed our Secretary of State renewal, and I wanted to share a little stewardship story. Early in the year, we got a gift from Judith Harris and John Harris. And we wrote to their nephew, who was the executor, and just offered them a book plate because we don't have recognition lined up yet for big gifts. And so he was really tickled that we picked out books. I picked a nature book out for John and a romance for Judith because she likes romances. And so they will be added to our book a year for the next 10 years. And get a nameplate for both of them. So I think we could scroll down just a little bit more. And then our last newsletter we sent out to people that participated in it. But Amy Lawrence at the Not Nail, she gave us a donation for our auction last year. If you skim down a little bit further, she actually posted on Facebook the whole article. Saying that it was the best day ever. She got this mail and, she liked supporting the library and she got, more engagement that way. So that was really a nice way for us to get a little more attention. So everybody that has gone to her page, personal and business sense, is also getting more at what's going on in the library. Anybody have any questions for me?
I like that William Kent Kruger dinner upper bid.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. That's gonna be one of our tentpole items. Flagpole items. Anyway, yeah, William Kent Kruger has agreed to come down here and have dinner with 4 people. Blue Duck has agreed to sponsor it. It's gonna be, I think, back courses and 3 wines. And so you can invite, 3 people, 3 of your friends, or you could get together as a board. Everybody who likes William Kent Kruger, and then you just divvy up your part and get your seat at the table. So he's just a really genuinely nice gentleman, easy to talk to.
Any questions for Brenda? Thank you. Right. Right.
Hi, I'm Val Kalifeski with the Friends, and the report we have for this month is we attended the United for Libraries virtual Friends of the Library Day that Karen so graciously hosted. I'm sure some of you attended the Library Board Day, and several of the people attended this meeting today. And the presentations we had in the Friends Day just really affirmed that a lot of what we're doing, is already consistent with recommended practices. Then we had an off-site sale at the History Center with Rochester Reads. It was a 10 to 3 event or something like that. We had beautiful weather. It rained 2 inches the day before, but the day of, it was just gorgeous. We set up a tent, raised some money, handed out a bunch of coupons and bookmarks, and made some contacts within the community to let them know that we have a bookstore here at the library. We were right next to the library tent. So we were sending people back and forth to each other's tents. And our very own Pat Stevenson had a field day with being able to do story times in the schoolhouse. She was just ecstatic to be able to do that. And then the last thing is right outside this wall is the new study pod. At our last Friends Board meeting, we all got to check it out. And when you close the doors, you cannot hear anything. You can't hear what they're saying inside. And if you're inside, you can't hear what's being said outside. It's pretty awesome. So the Friends funding was used to purchase that in full. And we were glad to be able to provide the money for that. So I believe at this time, if it holds up to 4 people, and the table either comes down so you have a workspace, or it flips up, and you reserve it through the reference desk. Right now, I think eventually they're going to plan to have it online where you can do online reservations. Oh, it is online. So that's the report we have for Friends for this month. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. We finally had a meeting. It was a really, really long meeting. There was a lot happening. 3 kind of important things. They are firing someone at Selco as a staff member because there's a shared ILS amongst the Selco libraries. So that person will manage the ILS system. They were in interviews during our meeting, which was a couple weeks ago. So maybe they fired somebody by now. Thing number 2, we have a lot of announcements from the advocacy folks, including there is an open comment period currently on the federal E-rate system. You can go to saveourerate.com. In Minnesota, that's worth about $12 million annually amongst school and public libraries. It impacts the federal management of how much telecommunications companies can charge for internet access. So saveourerate.com, and you can put out a public comment. That's the best way to let people know that you actually care about that program.
But it significantly reduces the
Cost.
costs that schools, libraries, and hospitals pay.
And for OPO, it's about 8,600, I think. Don't quote me on that number, somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 that we are receiving.
It's a huge amount of money for us personally and for the state as a whole, probably nationwide is also impacted. And thing number 3, we received a copy of the delivery study, this giant piece of paperwork that Selco has been working on for quite a while. And it had some key recommendations about how the network can be improved. Most important and most expensive and most hardest to implement is that they would like to see RFID on everything that goes through the Selco system, but the libraries will have to institute that on a case-by-case basis. So they're working on finding ways to get teams trained up and find some grant money to let those libraries get RFID on their stuff, because having it run through the automatic sorter without an RFID chip isn't super helpful for shared materials. And there was also a slight rearrangement of delivery routes. There's 3 delivery routes that happen every day that will save both time and mileage.
Any questions? Thank you. Executive committee report.
Oh.
Let's go. I don't think everything's just jumping off the page, other than we've been known for,
We talked a lot about the plan for today's board retreat. And also, so a lot of this information you'll see at the board retreat later. And we have folks that reviewed the draft advocacy plan, which I'll talk about in a minute. And also planned just some, really, and those were the topics. It was a lot about tonight's board retreat, so.
Do you want to, anybody have any questions about the executive committee? And then how about any, want to move on to advocacy since you're already halfway there?
Yes. So we did review the draft plan, and we are gonna be taking back some of these recommendations that we got from the advocacy committee. We also talked a lot about, the word stakeholder, that really has colonialist, connotations that are offensive, so, I connected with those in the city's DEI office and in communications and engagement. They try as often as possible to use, community or residents or interested parties. We talked as an administrative team about trying to use interested community members and partners as much as possible, knowing that there will be some instances where we will need to use stakeholders, such as if we are presenting to city council, they're still that isn't, stakeholders conveys a different term and understanding for our elected, so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How is that offensive?
So, it really is the, refers to, staking a claim in land and for indigenous communities, that is.
It goes back to that.
Yeah. And then we talked about creating elevator speeches and how to create meaningful messages depending on the different audiences that you're talking to. So we're going to continue that work at our meeting in September. Questions?
Then, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Second.
I've got a question. The contracts signed. One of the things that I saw was the LinkedIn Learning. How much usage or utilization is that getting for our 19,000?
For LinkedIn Learning, do you have a number of what the usage is monthly?
And that was one that we had a multi-year contract and we were able to get a discount by doing multi-year. Our contract is up in 2027. And we actually just had a staff training about it today.
Okay.
It offers lots of training resources to people. It was initially lynda.com and then that was purchased by LinkedIn. That became LinkedIn Learning. There was an issue with privacy, so they were willing to work on that, and people are able to just plug in their library and not have a LinkedIn profile automatically created for them, which was not understood by all users when they were doing that, was automatically creating a public profile. Wonder where it's going.
I would say in comparison, like databases are quite expensive.
I guess I think it's, if you only have 30 people using your facility, that's an awfully, great expense for, I mean, if it's getting used, great,
Yeah.
but. Yeah.
We have an average of 540 a month.
Okay, well, that's good.
That's a lot.
So,
It's a good tool. So a lot of technology. Others.
one last question I have too. I saw that you had a speaker coming in that you had signed a $3,000 agree for, fees. What's gonna be the cost? What's that $3,000 going for?
I believe that is for Rochelle, who's coming for our All-Staff Training Day, which is our 75-ish folks attending that. She has done presentations to our city of Rochester, so all of our supervisors participated in a training. She does a reset method that talks a lot about being able to reset in times of stress and really being present and how that really ties to being a much better employee and being able to, give your fullest in your work. And some mindfulness techniques that folks can implement.
Want me to read the description?
Sure.
So in this interactive keynote, Rochelle Union will introduce the reset method, a practical framework for navigating stress, tension, and change at work. Through brief groundbreaking practices, interactive discussion, and community building conversations with colleagues, staff will connect their personal values with RPL's shared mission and explore ways to move through everyday friction with more clarity and compassion. Participants will leave with simple, sustainable reset tools they can use in real time throughout their workday. And so she's more of a national renowned speaker. So we also have speakers who are free. So but she's kind of our big keynote.
She is one, like I mentioned, we had a whole supervisors training, and I think that's where our supervisors were first aware of her. At leadership forum for department heads, she's been brought in twice in the last 2 years.
So there's a proven trend. Okay, I looked her up real briefly, and of course, she has such a cross wall of well, knowledge. I just kind of wanted to get a better understanding. Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That agenda passes. So we're down to reports and recommendations of retreat. So we have county funding update.
Right, and there really isn't a lot to report. I did meet with the county board and do what my annual presentation that goes to the county board when we during their budget cycle. That's something all libraries that are funded by Homestead County do. They have a lot of questions about the payment for services portion of our request. And I provided clarity that we would need to have, should we not receive that additional 129,000 plus in funding, it would make it very challenging for us as far as the digital access that we're providing for rural county residents. And that the bookmobile stops, we would have to cut back or reduce altogether the Byron, Orinoco, and Dover Yoda stops. Folks would be able to use any of the other bookmobile stops that were within the city limits of Rochester, but those stops going out into the county would not continue. I have not heard any update to date, but the only firm update is that commissioners did approve and support the breakdown of distribution method for their 1% allocation.
So that pie is approved, but the ice cream is still in question.
Yes, so waiting on the ice cream.
I find it astonishing that these sorts of conversations were going on 20-some years ago when I was at Selco. It's like, really? We haven't really? So.
Yeah, and I think, like I mentioned, I think I put in this update? Yes, in this update, but we're not the only community that is having. It's not the only county having these conversations. There was some good news from Winona County, who had threatened to significantly cut funding, but they have changed their minds and they are going to maintain their funding for folks in Winona County. But you've seen the article in both Hennepin County and St. Paul, where they have they're closing. The proposal is to close a library, and then they are proposing to reduce hours by 7% in Hennepin County. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in those larger communities, as well as what's going on, regionally. So questions about that?
Any questions and answers in general?
Youth representative? Agree with that?
We're waiting for the. So we could maybe have some-
Yes, please.
We had 22 applicants and Youth Services team is reviewing the applications. A lot of great kids from all over throughout Rochester high schools, as well as some representing the county. We are working out the final details of how we're going to pay them, and then we'll be sending out an agreement to the selected candidates. You should have a rep at your certificate.
And I think we need to brainstorm about how to get that person involved. But not just something in the company.
So part of our Team Library Council meetings are gonna be training them on engagement and the board processes and things, so it's hoped that they will bring information to share and be part of your conversation.
When would they end, April or May?
They're actually gonna end in August, it's a full year.
Oh, it is, only.
And there may be issues that we could put on the agenda that person will help.
Yep, so part of their task is gonna be doing peer connection work. They're gonna be bringing back what they're learning from their peers to the Team Library Council meetings. And that group will kind of put together a little report for the board of things that would be relevant, and you could discuss that.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Pizza here.